My name is Harriet, and I've dedicated my entire adult life to one company. For 32 years, I've been working at the same organization, giving my all, my time, my energy, my focus. I was loyal, committed, and proud of the work I did. I had worked my way up, learning everything I could and earning the respect of my colleagues and superiors. But everything changed the moment the new CEO, Robert, took over. It started slowly at first. Robert was different from the previous CEO. He came in with big promises, talking about innovation and new directions for the company. He had big plans, and I, like everyone else, was curious. But as the weeks went by, I began to notice the changes. Little by little, people who had been with the company as long as I had, or even longer, started disappearing. Rumors spread. Some were retiring early, others were leaving voluntarily, and some were being pushed out. I kept my head down, focused on doing my job the best I could, hoping the storm would pass. I didn't think it would touch me. After all, I had been there longer than most. I was loyal to the company. I was a part of its foundation, a pillar that held it up. Surely, I would be safe. But that was until the day Robert called me into his office. "Harriet," he said with a calm but authoritative voice, "I think it's time we part ways." I sat there, completely stunned. I had been expecting some kind of review or discussion, but this was a shock to my system. I stared at him, unable to comprehend what he was saying. "Wait, what?" I finally managed to say, still not fully understanding. "You've done great work, Harriet. You've been with us a long time, but we're moving in a new direction, and I think it's time for you to move on," he said matter-of-factly, as though it was no big deal. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. How could this happen? After 32 years? I was 2 months away from retirement, a retirement that I had worked my entire life for. This was the end of an era, but I wasn't ready to let it be the end of me. I looked at him, my voice shaking. "You can't be serious." Robert didn't flinch. "I'm afraid I am. You're a great worker, Harriet, but the company needs fresh blood. The new direction we're going in doesn't align with your position anymore." I stood up, my mind racing. It didn't make sense. I had given my life to this company. I had built something here, and now, in one fell swoop, it was all taken away. "I've given you 32 years, I said, my voice starting to shake with a mix of anger and disbelief. "And this is how you repay me, after everything?" "I'm sorry, Harriet," Robert said coldly, "but this is the way it has to be." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. How could he do this to me? How could someone come in, so easily destroy years of loyalty and hard work? I didn't have the words to argue anymore. It was clear that Robert didn't understand the value of loyalty or commitment. He had no idea what it had taken for me to get to where I was, no clue about the sacrifices I had made, the moments I had missed, or the years I had dedicated. And in that moment, I knew that no matter how much I wanted to fight, it wasn't going to change anything. But one thing was clear: I wouldn't just walk away quietly. I had a plan. The room went silent, and I could feel the eyes of everyone on me, the weight of their stares as heavy as the tension in the air. Jason's words echoed in my head. "I'm leaving you." It was as if time itself had stopped, and I was suspended in a world where I didn't belong anymore. My breath caught in my throat. I had always imagined the worst, but I never expected this. Not like this. Not in front of our daughter. I looked over at Isabella, who was standing there frozen, tears already brimming in her eyes. My heart broke for her. This day was supposed to be the best day of her life. The day she had worked so hard for, her graduation. And now it was being tainted by Jason's announcement. It wasn't just a betrayal to me. It was a betrayal to her too. I stood up slowly, my hands trembling, but I refused to let my emotions overtake me. I wasn't going to break down in front of everyone. I was stronger than that. "Jason, what are you doing?" I managed to say, my voice surprisingly calm, though inside I was screaming. "We're supposed to be celebrating her accomplishment today, and you choose this moment to drop a bombshell like that?" My eyes flashed with hurt and anger. "You couldn't have waited a single day to do this? To destroy our family's happiness? Jason didn't respond immediately. He seemed to be searching for words, but I knew him too well. I knew he was too far gone to reconsider, to take back what he'd just said. He was already mentally checked out. I had seen it coming, but I didn't want to admit it. "I can't keep pretending anymore, Bianca," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't the life I want. We've drifted apart. We're not the same people we used to be." My eyes narrowed, and I could feel the sting of his words deep in my chest. "Don't you dare blame me for this," I said, my voice firm. "I've been here every step of the way. I've been supporting you, taking care of this family. And this is how you repay me?" Jason's expression faltered for just a second, but he quickly regained his composure. I could see that he wasn't the same person I once loved. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about something else. Isabella was still standing there, her face pale, her mouth open in shock. She hadn't said a word yet, but I could feel the panic rising in her. I turned to her, trying to give her a reassuring smile, but it didn't feel real. "Honey, I'm so sorry," I said gently, walking toward her. "This has nothing to do with you. You are the reason I've kept going for so long." She looked at me with wide eyes, still processing what had just happened. Then, without warning, she turned and fled from the room, retreating to her bedroom. I couldn't blame her. She needed space to breathe, to process, to deal with the overwhelming emotions that came with such a betrayal. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty spot where she had been standing just moments before. My daughter, my family. Everything was slipping away in front of me, and I couldn't stop it. Jason, on the other hand, seemed to feel nothing. His gaze was distant, his face hard. "I can't do this anymore, Bianca," he said again, as though repeating it would make it truer. "I've made up my mind." I felt my throat tighten as I fought back the tears that were threatening to spill, but I wasn't going to cry in front of him. Not this time. Not after everything I had given up to make this family work. I had spent so many years sacrificing, giving, and loving, and now it was all crumbling. "No, Jason," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "You don't get to do this, not today, not on her day." For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in Jason's eyes. Guilt? Regret? Maybe, but it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. I had to make a decision. To stay and fight for a family that was no longer there, or to walk away and fight for myself. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself. The silence in the room was almost unbearable after Jason's words hung in the air. My mind raced, but all I could focus on was the devastation I felt. This was supposed to be a day of joy, a day for Isabella. How could Jason choose this moment to announce he was leaving? I glanced over at our daughter, who was standing still, shock written all over her face. She was a young woman now, poised and proud of everything she had accomplished, but in that instant, she looked as fragile as a little girl. Her eyes searched mine, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. What happens now? I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to stay calm, trying to be strong for her. But this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Isabella, and I couldn't let her see her family unravel in front of her eyes. Not today, not like this. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking but my voice clear. "Jason, what are you doing? You can't just drop this on us, not now, not at our daughter's graduation." I turned to the rest of the family, who were sitting quietly, still processing what had just happened. "This is supposed to be a celebration, not a circus." Jason shifted uncomfortably, his eyes avoiding mine. He couldn't even meet my gaze. "Bianca, I've been thinking about this for months. I've tried to make it work, but I'm done. I need to move on." His words stung like daggers, each one more painful than the last. How could he be so cold? We had built a life together, our life, and now he was throwing it away just like that. "You've been thinking about this for months," I repeated, my voice trembling with emotion, "and you couldn't even have the decency to talk to me about it before today?" My chest tightened. "This is Isabella's day. And you choose now, of all moments, to tear us apart? Jason's expression softened just slightly, but it wasn't enough. I didn't want to hurt her, he muttered. But I couldn't keep pretending. I don't love you anymore, Bianca. It's over. The words hit me like a freight train. I didn't want to believe it, but I could hear the finality in his voice. The pain was raw, but I wasn't going to let him see me crumble. I turned to Isabella, who was still standing there, unsure of what to do. Sweetheart, I said softly, walking over to her and pulling her into a tight embrace. I whispered, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I could feel her shaking in my arms as she tried to hold back her own tears. This wasn't how I wanted this day to go, but I couldn't change what had already been said. I couldn't undo the hurt Jason had just caused. I took a deep breath and stepped back from her, turning to face him again. I wasn't going to let him get away with this, not without a fight. I don't care if you don't love me anymore, Jason, I said, my voice firm and steady. But this is our daughter's graduation. You will not ruin it. You will not make this about you. Jason's face flushed with embarrassment. He didn't expect me to stand up for myself like this. He thought I would just sit there and take it, as I always had. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had spent too many years living for him, supporting him, and putting my own dreams aside. But not anymore. You need to leave, I said, my voice unwavering. You don't get to make a scene here. You don't get to ruin our daughter's moment. Jason looked around at the family, clearly not expecting me to take control of the situation. But he saw the strength in me now. I wasn't going to let him do this. Not to me and not to Isabella. And with that, I turned my back to him. It was time to put an end to the show he was trying to put on. I wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. The shock from Jason's announcement didn't wear off quickly. I was still standing there, trying to process his words. How could he do this? How could he announce something so monumental at such a sensitive moment? He knew how much our daughter Isabella had worked for this graduation day. He knew how much it meant to her. And yet, he was throwing it all away, like it meant nothing. As the room fell silent, I could see Isabella's eyes filling with confusion and sadness. She was standing off to the side, looking at her father, and then back at me. Her face said it all. She couldn't comprehend how someone could leave their family, especially after all we'd been through together. But the more I looked at her, the more I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for her too. The look on her face, the sadness in her eyes, sparked something deep inside me. This wasn't just about Jason's betrayal. It was about rebuilding. It was about showing Isabella the strength of a woman who refuses to be broken. It was about showing her that no matter how many times life knocked us down, we had the power to rise again. With my heart pounding in my chest, I took a step toward Isabella and held out my hand. She hesitated, but then, as if she knew exactly what I needed, she walked over and took it. It was that moment that I realized I wasn't alone in this. She was with me. We were in this together, and nothing was going to tear us apart. Jason was still standing there, his face red with frustration. He had expected me to break, to beg him to stay, but I wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. Not anymore. Not after everything he had done. I'm not going to beg you, Jason, I said, my voice steady, but firm. If you want to leave, then go. But understand one thing, you are making this decision. You are choosing to walk away from your family, and there's no coming back from that. He looked at me, his mouth open as though he wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. His anger was building, but I didn't flinch. I had spent years being the caretaker, the one to hold everything together. Now, it was time for me to stand up for myself. Don't you dare try to make this my fault, I continued. This is your decision, and only yours. You're walking away, Jason, not me. The room remained silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat, which seemed louder than ever. Isabella was now clutching my hand tighter, as if reassuring herself that everything would be okay. In that moment, I realized that I had to be the rock, not just for her, but for myself too. I couldn't afford to let this tear us apart. Jason looked from me to Isabella, and I could see a flicker of regret in his eyes. But it was too little, too late. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. As he turned to leave, I held Isabella close, feeling the weight of everything settle into my chest. But instead of feeling defeated, I felt a surge of strength that I hadn't felt in years. I didn't need Jason to validate me. I didn't need him at all. The room was still in shock after Jason's announcement. I could feel the tension building up as everyone around us began to whisper, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The air was thick with confusion and disbelief, but I couldn't afford to let this moment define me. I had spent too many years letting other people control my happiness, my choices. It was time to stop playing small. It was time for me to take control of my life. I turned to face Jason, my heart pounding in my chest. The anger that had been simmering inside me was rising to the surface, but this time I was in control. I wasn't going to let him have the last word, especially not on a day that was supposed to be about our daughter. "You think you can just walk away from everything we've built?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. Jason's face was still a mask of coldness, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You think this is how this ends? That you can destroy our family, ruin this day, and just walk out the door?" Jason opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "No, Jason. This is not how it's going to go. Not anymore." The room went quiet, and I could feel all eyes on me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I took control of my own narrative. Jason had thought he could walk out without any consequences, but what he didn't realize was that I had been building my strength for years. I wasn't going to sit quietly and let him ruin my life. I looked over at Isabella, who was still standing in the corner, her face pale and confused. She deserved better than this. She deserved to see me stand up for her, for myself, and for the family we had once been. "Isabella," I said gently, walking toward her, "this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You are loved, and nothing will ever change that." I reached out to pull her into a hug, holding her tightly as the tears started to fall. I knew she needed reassurance, and for the first time, I felt like I was able to give it to her. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered through her sobs. "I never wanted this to happen." I pulled away, looking at her with as much strength as I could muster. "Sweetheart, this isn't about you. This is about your father's choices, and we're going to be okay, I promise." I stood up, walking toward Jason, my resolve strengthening with each step. "You've made your choice," I said quietly, my voice steady now. "But I'm not going to let you destroy what we've built." I could see the moment he realized there was no going back. The realization was slow to dawn on him, but it was there. Jason stared at me, his anger faltering as he saw the woman I had become, the woman he had never truly known. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't the woman who would sit quietly in the shadows, letting him make all the decisions. I had learned through years of sacrifice and pain that I was capable of standing up for myself and my family. I turned away from him, walking toward Isabella and my family. The day was still ours. The moment had been stolen from us, but we had each other, and that was all that mattered. As I led Isabella and my family out of the room, I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready for it. I was ready for whatever came next. I stood there in complete shock as Jason's words echoed in my ears. He was leaving me. After all these years, all the sacrifices, all the love we had shared, and he was walking away. But as the coldness of his announcement sank in, something unexpected happened. Instead of falling apart, I felt a surge of power. This wasn't going to break me. Our daughter, Isabella, had been standing by, trying to process everything as well. I looked at her, her eyes wide with confusion and hurt. I felt my heart shatter all over again, but in that moment, I knew I had to keep it together. I couldn't let this ruin everything for her. I turned to face Jason, my voice steadier now. "You think this is just about you, don't you? That you can walk away without consequences?" I said, my words cutting through the tension in the room. You might have made this decision, but I will not let you drag us down with you. Jason opened his mouth to say something, but I wasn't finished. You're not leaving me like this. Not on Isabella's day. Not after everything we've been through. I stepped closer to him, my hands trembling with a mixture of anger and determination. I've supported you through thick and thin, and this is how you repay me. His silence spoke volumes. He didn't have an answer. He couldn't. He had already made up his mind, and now he was facing the consequences of that decision. I turned to Isabella, who was now visibly upset. I could see her struggling with her emotions. She was hurt, angry, confused, and so was I. But this wasn't the time for any of us to fall apart. We needed to rise above this. I walked over to her, pulling her into my arms. Sweetheart, none of this is your fault. Your dad's decision is on him. He's the one who has to live with it, not you. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. But Mom, why did he do this? Why now? Why on my day? I wiped her tears gently, holding her close. I don't know, sweetie. But what I do know is this. We will get through this. We always have, and we always will. This doesn't define us. As I held her, I realized that this moment, as painful as it was also a turning point. I wasn't the woman who would silently endure anymore. I wasn't the woman who would allow someone to walk all over me. I was stronger than that. I had spent years putting everyone else's needs before mine, but no longer. This was my time. I was going to heal, to rebuild, and to make a life that was mine, not one defined by anyone else's choices. And as for Jason, well, he had made his choice. He had decided that walking away was easier than facing the challenges in our marriage, but what he didn't realize was that, by doing so, he was leaving behind the very thing he had taken for granted, me. With Jason gone, I knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be challenges, no doubt, but I was no longer afraid. I had faced the worst of it, and I had survived. Now, it was time to thrive. It was time to reclaim my happiness, for myself and for Isabella. Isabella and I spent the evening together, just the two of us. We didn't need anything else. We didn't need Jason to complete us. We had each other, and that was enough. I knew it was going to be hard, but together, we could face anything. As the night drew to a close, I felt a sense of peace. The uncertainty that had clouded my mind earlier had begun to clear. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't weak. I was a survivor, and I was going to thrive.